Don't try to sneak into your room like that. I know what you've got behind your back. Records. More new records.
This will be a video about records that I never reviewed for one reason or another, which I will explain. But first, maybe you saw this news that Joey DeFrancesco died. The Hammond B3 player died at 51 years old. You know, what do you say? He was great, and some of you probably know him from this record with Van Morrison, which is really a fun record. And if you don't have this record, I did review this, and I highly recommend it. And Joey also plays trumpet on here. He was a multi-instrumentalist, and you know, he just was a pyrotechnic player on the organ, and had a lot of soul. And here's one I didn't review that I'm really sorry that I just didn't get around to it, and it's this one here, which was nominated for a Grammy, I think, in 2019 for Best Jazz Album. And it features Pharoah Sanders, Billy Hart on drums, Troy Roberts on saxophone, and Sammy Figueroa on percussion. And he produced this with his wife Gloria, who I'm sure can't even imagine what that must be like. And you know, this is something I say a lot, and I'll say it again, and I don't care if it offends anybody, but Jesus Christ, if you really have a lot of poundage, just lose some weight, and you'll live longer. It's just a fact of life. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about that. I highly recommend this record too, and I will review it. I will review it, but it's wonderful, and it's got it's got Pharoah Sanders, the creator, has a master plan from his album Karma, which a lot of you must know, and I did a parody of it called The Creator Has a Master Key, which was very funny. But okay, that's that. So let's get to some records I didn't review and why. And there's also a few here that I actually did review because I've changed my mind about what I'm going to say. So this I didn't review. This is a new issue of Little Feat Waiting for Columbus, one of the great live albums ever made as far as I'm concerned, and an amazing, great recording for live albums are so difficult to record live, especially when it's in a big setting, and there are, you know, on the stage there are monitor speakers blaring out at the performers, and that gets picked up by the microphones. It creates all kinds of problems. At any rate, I say at any rate a lot. I know. I'm sorry. This reissue by Bernie Grundman is really, really excellent. If you don't have this record, I recommend this. Cut from the master tape, all analog. And I bring that up because this is the MoFi that Stan Ricker cut, and it was formerly my favorite. And I still like this record. It's really fun to listen to. You know, Stan did his thing. He boosted the bass and he boosted the treble, so it's really exciting. And when the first couple of bass notes hit, when the guys get on stage and they're just getting ready to play, and you hear that, and then they start playing, and it's very exciting. But I found when I played this one, I could listen to the whole thing straight through, all four sides. Where I didn't with this, actually, because it got fatiguing after a while. This is a much more honest rendering of what's on the tape. It might not be as exciting at the beginning. You might say, gee, the bass isn't nearly as good. But really, the bass is more honest. And the vocals, these guys really had great vocals and great harmonies. And the vocals are far more natural sounding, and you see further into the stage. And you actually hear more detail on this version. So if you like this record and you have this one or the later MoFi, just pick this up and compare the two, and you'll get an idea of what MoFi did and has been doing ever since. Which brings me to this record, which I did not review, and I'm not going to review. And some of you know, this actually, they did divulge this was cut from tape, and that's good, I think. And it's a nice packaging. They got the actual kind of paper that the original was on. This is the original here. But what is this record? This is David Crosby, and there's a picture of David on the front with the sunset and David on the back. So the highlight of this record is David Crosby's incredible voice. And you know, his voice is still amazing for all that he's been through and how elderly he is, like me. His voice is still supple. And the later records that he did also are really well recorded, because obviously he cares about that, like Neil and all the guys in CSN and Y cared about good sound. At any rate, I said it again, I'm sorry. Um, this record, they did their thing to it, and they boosted the top, and they boosted the bottom, and David Crosby's voice is crunchy and recessed in the mix because of the equalization. So if you have an original Artisan Sound issue, listen to David Crosby's voice on this. It's really rich and warm in the mid-range. It sounds like David Crosby. I just wish these guys wouldn't do what they do, and don't tell me it's, well, they get the azimuth correct on every track. I don't buy that. They play with the EQ to give you the sense that you're getting something different and better, and I don't buy it. Okay, compare these two if you can. And by the way, Jeff Edgers, the Washington Post writer who wrote wrote the story about the MoFi digital debacle, and I had some issues with how he dealt with me. But he came here. I get over these things, believe it or not. He came over here just the other day, and we had a very, very nice day, most of the day, playing records and talking. And I played him a bunch of these differences. I didn't tell him what he should hear. I didn't tell him what he should include. But I just played them for him and said, you listen and you tell me what you think, if you want to, and if you don't want to, write about it, because I think it would be interesting for your readers to hear what you hear. So I didn't review this one. I'm not going to review it, because I'd rather review records that I like. Sometimes you have to do some negative reviews. Like I reviewed the MoFi version of Oh Mercy. Now, Oh Mercy is a great record, and that was recorded kind of primitively in the producer's home, and they mixed it on a kitchen table. And the master of Oh Mercy was actually a DAT tape. That was the master. And then at some point it was converted to an analog tape, and it may have been because there was a speed error, or Dylan wanted it. I forget the exact story, but so the SACD came out, the box set SACD, and I think anyway, I think MoFi's version did not say original master recording. It said the other banner just said Mobile Fidelity Sound Labs, because the original DAT tape had been transferred and they couldn't get the DAT tape probably. At any rate, I said at any rate again. I'm sorry, I have certain habits that I repeat. So, all right, let's move on here. So I want to go back to a couple of records I definitely did not review, and this is the first one. This is the Tony Bennett, I Left My Heart in San Francisco, that MoFi released, I think 2011. It's quite some time ago. And I have an original pressing of this. It's a Columbia. It's a wonderful sounding record. And, I like the fact that on the Columbia you get track listings and times. They chose not to give you that on the MoFi. At any rate, I said at any rate again. Shit, I'm sorry. I played this first because I played it for forever, and it's a nice Columbia recording. It's got some interesting things about it that are not normal. Columbia 30th Street Studio had that fantastic echo chamber in the basement, the one that Roy Halley had Simon and Garfunkel crawl into and sing the ahs on Only Living Boy in New York. That wasn't used for this. For some reason, it probably wasn't a digital reverb, because this is a pretty old record, 1962. But some other kind of reverb, where if you listen behind Tony's voice, there's this shh going on, kind of a reverb that's behind his voice. It's way, way back in the mix. So then I played this one, and there's something wrong with this record. And at the time that I said to myself, there's something wrong with this record, I didn't know that it was the first DSD transfer that MoFi had done. I just knew there's something wrong with it. And there's something wrong with it in that the reverb that's behind his voice on this one, that's just like a faint trail, is like slammed into the foreground on this one. It makes it unlistenable. It's not listenable. And the piano on this just doesn't sound right. The record sounded wrong to me, and so I just didn't review it. Get a hold of one. If you have this record and you think it sounds great, get a hold of one of these. There must be a million of these pressed, and I'm sure you can get an original 2i like that. Get that. Compare the two, for God's sakes, and see what you think. It's not close, and it's not subtle. Whatever caused that to happen, whatever caused this to not sound good, I'm not going to get into the analog and the digital part of it. Here's another one. I never reviewed this one because I have this one, which was cut by Cisco. This is a Cisco reissue that was done in 2006, I believe, before some of you were born. And this is cut from the original analog tape by Kevin Gray. And this is not a great recording to begin with, even though it was recorded by two great engineers. Dave Hassinger, who was, got cut his teeth recording classical music for RCA, and ended up, he recorded like the Rolling Stones Aftermath record, which is one of the best sounding, in a different way that we normally think of the Rolling Stones, but a great sounding record. And Val Garay, two great engineers. And there were a few other engineers. There was some of it was done at Air Studios. Some additional recording was done at the record plant in New York, at Track Recorders at George Massenburg. I mean, and Bernie Grundman mastered the original. Never was a great sounding record. This one sounds good. This one is just awful. It's awful. And again, they equalized it. And there's no way you can say they didn't equalize it to try to make the bass more prominent and better. So when you boost the bass the way they boosted it on this record, Linda's voice just gets lost. It gets lost. If you have this and you think it's great, get a hold of one of these or get an original, and then you'll hear it. Here's another one. You think this sounds great? I didn't review this one. I didn't want to. Now I think it's time that I do this, so I'm doing it. And this does not sound great. You want to hear one that sounds great? This one that Bernie Grundman cut using the original master tape in 2009. If you can get a hold of this. If you love this record and you have this and you think it sounds good, get a hold of this one and compare it. This one sounds coarse. You listen to Water of Love. Play Water of Love on this, and then play Water of Love on this. I made that comparison the other day for Jeff Edgers. I don't know if he's going to write about it, and I'm not going to say what he said, because he did say something after I heard that one. I'm not going to say it, because that's his business, not mine. But, again, this is grainy, harsh, not very good sounding. It's not. Sorry. Compare it to this, and you'll immediately know that. And again, they boosted the bottom end. I just wish, I have no animus towards these three guys up there. They sequester themselves in Sebastopol. I don't think they get around. They should get around and come visit some reviewers, visit some audiophiles, and play what they do with other versions. I'd like to hear what they think, because this is not very good. All right, I know some of you are thinking, "Oh, I'm doing this because what? What? Some people out there think I cover for Mobile Fidelity. I'm a shill for Mobile Fidelity. Other people are going to think, well, whatever. I don't care what they're thinking. I really don't. Yet I must, because I just said I just mentioned it. Okay, here's another one. This is an original. I really love this Elvis record. It was recorded in Nashville, with Billy Sherrill producing it. And Billy Sherrill, I keep obits in records, which is a really cool thing, because, the Joey DeFrancesco obit's going to go in that record I just showed. And this is Billy Sherrill, a fixture in Nashville, a producer. He died in 2015. This record, this is the original British F-beat. It's the one that has the yellowy kind of cover on it, and the black inner, and it was mastered at Townhouse. And the sound on this record is impeccable. Of course, they made great sounding records in Nashville when they were, in those days, when they were cutting from tape, and they still make great records in Nashville when they cut from tape, and even the digital ones sound good because they have good studios there. good studio, beats anything. So at any rate, I said it again. I'm going to wash my mouth out with soap over it. At any rate. So at any rate, this record sounds incredible. The bottom end, the kick drum is really nice on this. The imaging is wonderful, and I'm sure that Elvis Costello himself knows how great this record sounds. So we compared Sweet Dreams with Jeff Edwards. We compared Sweet Dreams on this one, and we compared it to this one. They got the cover really good on this one, and it's a nice cover. Cover's perfect. But again, the bass is just boosted on that track to where it doesn't sound right. The balance, the timbral balance overall, it's just wrong. And it's not caused by getting the azimuth correct on every track or whatever they did with this. It just doesn't sound right. It's boomy. It messes up the great mix that was originally done and the great balance that you'll hear on this one. That's all I'm going to say. That's why I didn't review that one. All right, here's what I did review. I reviewed this one. This is the One Step Blood on the Tracks. I did review this one, and I talked about the hyper detail, and I said in the review, but it wasn't too much. Well, I played this for a bunch of people compared to an original Columbia pressing, and when you compare the two, really, it's too much. It is too much. If you get a chance to compare it, compare it. Not that easy to get an original. If you have an original, compare the two. And if you think this one sounds better, that's fine. Whatever you think is what matters. Whatever your system sounds like, that's what matters. You go to a hi-fi show and you go from room to room to room, and there are some great sounding systems and some awful sounding systems and some great sounding systems that differ from your taste, but that doesn't mean they're not great sounding systems. And as a reviewer, I'm not there to say what I like is best. I'm there to tell you what something sounds like, and then you might like that sound, you might not. My favorite letters from readers are when they say, I read that review, and that's exactly what that sounds like, because I've heard it, and you didn't really like it that much, but I like that sound. But I like reading your reviews because you say what it sounds like, and you don't make a value judgment about whether it's good or bad, except whether you like it or not. So, and that's what I try to do. So with this one, I gave this a good review. It probably is a little over the top and hyper. Compare it to an original and see what you think if you have the chance. Maybe not so easy if you don't have an original. The originals were probably costly, and of course there were two versions, one with the mural on the back and one with the writing on the back. And here's one you can compare. And I brought this to the Pack audio show. So we had this. I gave this a good review. I liked it because it's way, way better than the original Motown, the original Tomla pressing, which was pretty miserable for one reason or another. They actually, a lot of those Tomlas were mastered at RCA Studios, and they were actually processed by RCA and pressed by RCA, because Berry Gordy knew what was good. He really knew, and he knows what's good. At any rate, I did it again. I'm sorry. This is better than an original, and I gave it a really good review until this one came out, cut by Kevin Gray. You can still get this. If you like this record, and this is not expensive, and you get two records. You get a record with stripped versions without a lot of the stuff that was added. You get What's Going On, a stripped version. You get mix number 1, no strings or horns, rhythm and strings, instrumental mix, demo version of songs, original mono singles. It's a really interesting record, 2 records. And the first one, at least, the actual album, was cut from analog master tape. You can get this for not that much money. It's under $40. It's like $30, I think. So if you like the record enough to buy this, buy this and compare. If you still like this better, fine. You'll get an extra record of stuff that you might enjoy listening to as well. Compare the two. That's all I'm saying. You should do that. And then there was one more, and that is the Stevie Ray Vaughan. This is the one that was cut from an analog master tape back when Sony would send analog master tapes to Sterling Sound in New York, and Ryan Smith cut this from the original tape. and this is the One Step. And I've compared this for people since this came out. I compared it to this for many people who visited, and I didn't know how this was done. I knew it wasn't a master tape. I knew they didn't get master tapes, and I wrote about that in my 2015 review of the MoFi Kind of Blue. I knew they were working with copies of masters, and I said it. And copies of masters are fine. I don't know why they make this big deal about copies of masters not being fine. Almost every record I've got over there, all the great records from the 50s, from the 60s, throughout, were not cut from master tapes. They were cut from production copies, cutting masters, one off the master to make a lot of records. Or they'd make multiple versions and send it out to mastering places around the world. That's how it was done. And they sound great. So all I could say to people was, listen to this and listen to this. What do you think? And everyone, without fail, said, this sounds incredible and three-dimensional, and the transients are properly sharp, and everything is in line where it belongs. And this one sounds strangely soft in many ways, and the bass again is on this one the bass player is plucking a stringed instrument. On this one I brought this to the Pacific Audio Fest, and someone who makes videos, I'm not going to mention his name, someone who makes videos was there, and he said, oh, sounds like they pushed the loudness button. Yeah, that's what it sounds like. It sounds like they pushed the loudness button, plus what they do to the EQ just messes up the mesh together mix that whoever mixed it worked so carefully to get. And let me end on a positive note, and let me say that we did compare the Mobile Fidelity Imperial Bedroom, which was engineered by the great Jeff Emmerich, and I'm just going to go over and get them. I'll be right back. This is one of my favorite Elvis records. I think Jeff Emmerich's production is brilliant. I like the songs. The opening song, Beyond Belief, that song is beyond belief. This is when Elvis and the crew were just firing on all cylinders, and Shabby Doll and Man Out of Time and Almost Blue, which is on here, and In Every Home, You Little Fool, Town Crier, Boy with a Problem. Just one of his best records from 1982. So I don't have the Columbia Records version, because I'm sorry, Columbia Records at that point in time just sucked when it came to a lot of rock and roll. It was bad. So I have multiple copies from around the world, and I'm just gonna put this one back in its jacket. And we played a bunch. We played some of these because it's one of Jeff Edger's favorite records too. So we played. So I have multiple copies. I have this one. This is the which one is this? This is F-Beat Records. This is a UK F-Beat Records. Sounds really good. And then there's this one. This is Elvis's own label. This is Demon Records. This one's not so good. I think this was cut from a digital file, and it sounds like a digital file, and it's not very good. And I was surprised that he did this with a few records that he reissued, and this one doesn't sound very good at all. And then this one is this is the German version of well, it's European. You could get this all over Europe, but I bought this. You know where I got this? I got this in the Czech Republic in Prague, when there was a record store right by the river, and vinyl was pretty much dead, and so you could get anything you wanted for like a couple of pounds or a couple of euros. It was like incredible. So of course I bought one of these, and this sounds very good too. And this is on the F-Beat label. This one sounds really good. It's such a great recording. And you know what? This Japanese pressing sounds really good too. And I some Japanese records from this era were cut using like a 6-bit digital delay instead of a preview head. But however this was done, this one sounds really good. I don't think they used the digital delay on this one. Sounds really good. And this one sounds great. If you have this record, you're in good shape. This one, they didn't mess with the EQ. We played it. It's a little bit brighter, slightly, but the differences between this and all the ones that I think are really good are more about playback gear, playback system. If this was done from a digital file, I don't care. It sounds really good. So you're in good shape. However, if you love this record as much as I do, try to get one of the English ones, because you'd want to have that too. Let me see if you can see who actually mastered this one. W-L. I don't know what that means. Maybe some of you do. I don't know. But one of Elvis Costello's masterpiece records, and MoFi did a good job with this. I want to end on a positive note, and that's all I have to say to you for right now, and I hope you enjoyed this little excursion into audiophilia, and thanks for watching.